my new project. Mother bear with 2 cubs. It goes into an existing rock work, like in a little cave. This is a casting then out of that mold of the surface. The edge of the bear. I just visualize. This will be the back. There's a baby, a cub, will be here. This is a foot. From a foot, her paws will be hanging off this edge. Framework for the armature for the bear.
So now I get to add the foam sheets. These were just something I picked up at Lowe's. Also, I use foam in a can to glue them together and build up some smaller shapes, like the baby cub on her shoulder and the baby cub at her back hip. When I get the foam as I like it, I then add clay and continue shaping that clay, adding details, other features of anatomy, like the paw, the toes, claws. I have the face done pretty well here. I'm using oil-based plastilina clay here. My friend Ed is helping me move the bear outside and reattach it to the ground form. I need to make special care that the bear fits really well to this ground form, so that will ensure that it fits perfectly to the rock feature at the museum. So here I put the finishing touches before I do the mold.
Sent photos to the client for approval before I mold it. Here we are. So I'm waiting on green light to make the mold. It needs a little attention there. See the little black cracks and pinholes. I have to fix those. You can't have any of that. See those little cracks in there in the clay? A couple little pinholes there on the paw. Your silicone won't. It'll create a bubble. You won't get a good mold. So it's easy fix.
Using aluminum flashing, I make the first and only division in this mold. After that's finished, I cover the clay with crystal clear, mold release, and baby powder. The baby powder prevents small little bubbles in your rubber. I use a thin first coat, that's the pink rubber, and then a thicker second and third coat, that's the white rubber. Once that rubber job is finished and cured, you can do your fiberglassing.
I got fiberglass on over top the rubber. My battery is dead in the camera. Didn't get any video of that, but I think you get the idea. So now I drew this line, but before that I have to drill holes.
Before I cut out the line, I drill the holes. Then I cut out the extra fiberglass and separate the pieces of the fiberglass jacket. They sometimes can be difficult. That face piece came off pretty easy. The body piece was a little more of a struggle. And then you can pull the rubber off the sculpture. I then strip the clay off the foam, save the clay, and throw the original sculpture away.
Here's my molds for the bear. Turned out pretty good. Well, I mean they're great. They're no problems. So these 2 pieces. Now I've made up some. This is an epoxy gel coat. I thickened, see it, and it stays together. No runs. So I've got two. It's one batch, but I divided it into 2 smaller portions, or 1 smaller portion, and I need to color it black and a light brown. So I'm going to pre-color the gel coat. You want to let that first coat set up. The reason it has to set up is if you go and you put your glass right on top, that when it's wet, the fiber will come all the way to the surface and you'll see that weave. Okay, so I've cut my cloth. I've got another batch of thickened epoxy. The beauty coat, the gel coat, which was thickened epoxy that had color in it. Now this coat just lets your cloth, you lay your cloth into this coat while it's wet. Okay, I've got that coat of thickened epoxy in, the second coat of my cloth.
I put in 5 layers on this piece since it could potentially be climbed upon. You put the 2 halves of the mold together and then bridge fiberglass over the seam on the inside. After it sets up, you can pull the mold apart and strip the rubber off the casting. We'll see if it turned out.
Here's the casting of the mother bear, and it's not going to work. I didn't do a good job here, and you can fix that with paint. This isn't right, but since this is going to be a piece that people climb on, it really can't be incorrect. But I can use this in the meantime for the babies. You know, when I finish sculpting these, I need to put them on her and make sure it's a good fit, and then make a mold of the baby so I can use this as a pattern in the meantime. And I'll have to go and make a new casting and take a little more time with it. So step 11.
So now I need to make sure these baby bears really match up well to the mother bear casting. So I place them on her back and finish sculpting those to the position against that casting. So when I remold again, well, it would be for the first time when I mold the baby bears, the casting of those baby bears will match up perfectly with the casting of the mother bear. Now that those are in place, I can do the detail work, finish the hair texture.
I'm going to brush them with naphtha.
I usually sculpt everything a little bit coarse with texture, and this solvent will dissolve some of the texture, and it also dissolves some of the little crumbs or boogers of clay, and the brush strokes actually will turn out to look like a nice hair texture with the dissolved sculpting texture. Brushed it out with the solvent. See, there's very little pinholes. You can see some of the little pinholes there. I could go back and fix them with the solvent, but I think they'll be all right. You can spray. I spray a heavy coat. That's good. And before it dries, you just go back with a little paper towel and soak out any puddles. But this coating of crystal clear will help keep the clay from staining and sticking to the rubber so bad. I also will spray a little mold release over on top of that. Big puddle here. I've divided the face from the cub as I did the mother bear, but around the body and the legs it's much more complicated, so I use this water-based paper pulp. I actually can't get this anymore, and now I use a water-based clay against the oil-based sculpture. Baby bears are completely ready to put rubber on. I've laid these up in high fiber. I made some little keys. Same process as before, add the thinner coat and then proceed with the thicker coats. So after the rubber's done, you trim it out, and here I am putting the wetting out the fiberglass pieces and putting the fiberglass over the rubber. Transparent fiberglass doesn't show up on camera real well on top of the white rubber, so but you can see me doing it. Now that it's set up, I have to pull these cubs off the casting of the mother and spray that paper pulp off. Just a garden hose works really well. And when the mold is prepped and ready, you proceed to do the same thing again on the undersides. So the cubs here, they were a 3-piece mold. You're looking at the underside of the cub where they actually meet up with the mama bear. I paint my glass eyes. You always paint your eyes on the back side, and it's 2 coats of paint. When that's done, I dremeled the eyes out of the casting, and then I used some epoxy clay. I push in and rub in real well on the back side, the inside of the casting, and press the glass eyes into that. After the eyes have set, then I can come back and sculpt eyelids over top now that they're immobile, and I'll do some finished detail work. Now we're on to painting, and it's just some little details and highlights. Since we already pre-colored the resin, we're pretty close to where we want to be. What's nice about pre-coloring the resin is if this paint gets scratched off, you will have what is close to the correct color underneath, so the scratch will not be that noticeable. I do clear coat everything with a matte clear coat also. That helps with the paint durability. Finished up here at the Cook Museum at the Bear Inn.
baby back there. See that one through this peephole. You're still finishing all the other exhibits. This is the cave. Pretty nice. This is that rock I made a model for. And
They sort of followed it. There's a few things they got a little off, but it looks nice.